Hello, everybody. This is Josh Price, and you are listening to the Mark Price for 3 podcast. Each episode, my dad will be talking NBA basketball, sharing some coaching and instruction, and of course, talking about his faith. Without further delay, here's my dad, Mark Price.
Welcome back to the Mark Price for 3 podcast, episode 188 today. Mark is in New York. I'm in Columbus. We're not going to talk a lot about what just happened. But we will. Hey, I know the people are going to listen. They want to know. Mark, how are you?
I'm recovered from last night. Taking a trip with my wife. She came to Cleveland with me and just knew we were going to win Game 4. But yeah, this could be the official day of mourning for Cavs fans. I totally get it. You have every right to mourn what just happened over the last 4 games. We're not going to go deep into it today, but I think it needs to be mentioned that it's obviously, if you're not disappointed in what just happened as a Cavs fan, then you're probably just, woo, I'm going to pull for the Cavs. They're great no matter what happens type person. I don't think there's a lot of us out there like that, because... listen, it was an up and down season overall. We never felt like really the Cavs ever really found their mojo over the course of this season. The highest salaried team in the league. There was a lot of high hopes after last season. Just to basically lay it bare, kudos for getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't want to skip over that and make that lightly. That's not easy to do. But how they had to get there probably set them up for what happened when they got there. Having to grind out 2 series against, Toronto, and no disrespect to any of these teams, but nobody expected Toronto to beat the Cavs or go 7 games or maybe even go 5 games with the Cavs. But it went to a Game 7. And then the Cavs, start off rough against the Pistons, make a 3-game run, have a chance to close it out in Game 6, lay an egg there, and then turn around and just lay it all out and have a huge Game 7 win. But once again, it was a grind. The New York Knicks, and we talked about this last podcast, had been sitting home for a week. They were obviously the more rested team. And I know there's been a lot of mention of that by Kenny and even some of the players that really took its toll. Well, whose fault is that? In some ways. I mean, if you guys take care of business, then maybe you get a few days rest and we don't have to deal with that. But it is what it is. I will say this, going into the season, I wasn't a Knicks guy. I just didn't think, over the last couple of years watching them play, I just didn't think. I was more worried about Boston or a couple other teams. But, man, New York has found something. They have played unbelievable. I don't know how many straight they've won now in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Kudos to those guys because I was watching a really good basketball team playing, at the right time, their best basketball of the season, similar to the Indiana Pacers last year in some ways. But New York is not just coming back and winning on buzzer beaters. I mean, they're winning Game 7s on the road by 30, 40, even I think the Hawks, it was 50, closing series out. Mm-hmm. I mean, kudos to those guys. I mean, going in as well, I would have said whoever comes out of the East is going to struggle against whoever comes out of the West. Not so much right now. I think whoever wins in the West, particularly now that New York's going to have probably another week off, while the West grinds it out. The West is going to have their hands full with the New York Knicks. Kudos to Mike Brown, too. I think that's a missing piece that's in this, a guy that's been fired by the Cavs. He's gone to Sacramento. He's done some other things that hadn't worked out. Just like the New York Knicks have figured some things out. I think Mike Brown's figured some things out. And he's just done a fabulous job with that Knick team. And, he deserves all the kudos he's getting right now.
Yeah, Mike Brown was playing chess this entire series. I mean, game to game to game, Mike Brown was playing chess. We're going to talk on this in the face segment. So I think you and I are both being guarded, a little bit today. And we have the entire summer to unpack a lot of things. Who's coming, who's going, who we want, there's a lot there, and we can talk about that. But, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to at some point tip your hat to the Knicks. I mean, but at the same time, for me, when I watch Shamet hit, 13 out of 14, 14 out of 15, 15 out of 16, at some point you got to go, okay. I mean, come on. Like Josh Hart, game, I think it was 2 where he just went off for whatever 30 points or whatever he had and hit every 3. I mean, like, I don't know if they're a team of destiny. I don't know if I believe in that, but at some point, everything's coming up aces for the Knicks. I still believe that the 2 teams that are just duking it out in the West right now are better teams. And I don't want to sound like James Harden, what he said this morning. And again, we'll have plenty of time to unpack a lot of the comments that have been made by the Cavs coaches and players that have not gone well in the media. But that being said, I do believe that the 2 teams in the West are still better teams. I mean, but the Knicks are playing with house money right now. I mean, they are just rolling. And guys that I think they said on the broadcast last night, like Shamet was out. They didn't even know if he'd make the roster at some point. And my guy's out there hitting 13 out of 14 threes. I mean, at some point you just got to say, okay, it's just not our day, Now, if Sam Merrill would have hit 13 out of 14 threes, maybe we'd have a different conversation. But at some point you got to tip your hat and say, you know what, the Knicks were just better. They just played better. I don't know if they're the better team. I don't know analytics. I don't know the things that our guys are saying. I just know that when I watched the games, they were just better. They hit the shots that were open. They defended like they should have. They did what they needed to do, and ultimately they swept the Cavs. And so, yeah, we're going to have a lot of time to unpack the Cavs, and it's a day of mourning. I mean, it's sad if you're a Cavs fan. It was a tough watch. It was a very, very tough watch. And so, yeah, we'll have plenty of time to unpack that, but we had to at least address it, right? We had to talk about it. And I know you were there for 2 of the 3. So let me ask you that, Mark. You were there with your son Josh for Game 3.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Just let me ask travel plans. So you were there with Josh and he went home and picked up Laura, flew home, picked up Laura and came back, or like how'd that all work?
No, I stayed. I stayed in Cleveland, but Josh came. He left, and then Laura flew in for the game yesterday. And so, it was fun. Get to do that. Had a lot of great memories. Laura hadn't been back in Cleveland in a while, so I think it brought a lot of memories back with her as well. So that part was all good. I mean, and spending time with Josh and going to games like the good old days. Father son. Let's go watch the Cavs. And so it was a lot of fun in that way. But yes, just leaving the house disappointed every night. But it is what it is, and we're not going to go much more into this right now. But I will say this: in watching that, and I'm a guy. I'm not a sports writer. I'm not whatever, and this and that. Just watching the 2 teams played, you had one team that was out there playing like a team, and you had another team, that looked like a bunch of individuals trying to figure things out. And after the course of 90 games or more, that's the frustrating part for me as a former player. The Cavs, and you can go back and they had 41 different starting lineups over the course of the year. We'd made mention to that over many podcasts that's not a good thing when that's going on. And so I don't know. And then you made the trade late to get Harden, and then you got to fit that all together. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, and it just didn't work this time for the Cavs. And individuals, I think you go in there matchup wise. I think you say, oh, this individual matchup favors the Cavs. This individual matchup favors the Cavs. And that may be true, but the difference in the teams that were out on the floor, it wasn't even close. Wasn't even close. And that's the discouraging thing, because people are like, oh, let's get rid of this. No, let's find a way to make, if you're going to keep that group together, which there is a lot of talent on the Cavs team, you got to find a way to make it come together as a team. And, and so, yeah, there's a lot of soul searching that's going to have to be done. And we'll kind of help them with that over the next few podcasts and things like that, but yeah, I think everybody, I just think the quick reaction, hey, let's get rid of the coach. Hey, let's get rid of that guy. Hey, we got to turn this thing upside down. Right. I'm having been a player and been through, I think 9 times out of 10, the upheaval, total overhaul thing doesn't really turn out as planned. If you got players that are still developing, still have, sometimes it's the right guy or the right player or whoever, that one piece that can kind of bring it all together, in a lot of ways. And I think you saw, because the Knicks in the last couple seasons have struggled come post-playoff. And they made a few tweaks here and there. A lot of people questioned them in certain things. And now, but what they did worked, and it brought their team together. I'll use Cat as an example. Cat, came into this league, high draft choice, looking to be maybe a multiple all-star. Everybody built him up. He kind of had his ups and downs, trying to, be a big-time, this is a guy, and you don't see a lot of guys willing to do this. And like I said, I wasn't a Knicks fan in the past or even a Cat fan necessarily. But he willingly took a step back with his role to be a role player in a lot of ways. Hey, if you're open from the 3, hit it, but don't just, look for your offense. I mean, play with the team, play out of it. And it's been just seeing all the Knicks buy into what their roles are is the difference. And to be a team, and I've played a long time in the league at all levels, the really good teams, everybody's bought into their roles. But they have to know their role. And I think that the day of the analytics that, hey, everybody plays the same, let's spread it out, be a 3-point shooter or drive it. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think guys need to know, and guys play better, in my opinion, when they know what their role is and accept it and do it. You have certain guys that are going to fight it or whatever. And, at the end of the day, you probably end up having to get rid of those guys at some point if they're not going to buy in. But ultimately, it's a team game. I know the media, the social media, and all the things that go on in today's era focuses on the individual. I mean, they all got nicknames. I mean, it's SGA versus Wemby. No, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the San Antonio Spurs. Right. And the real basketball people understand that, and the real basketball players understand that. And you'll even hear the guys that really get it, SGA, all the time because he gets so much attention. But he's constantly praising his teammates and like, I wouldn't be doing this without them. And I mean, that he understands, and he's an MVP because of it. He understands how important his teammates are and what it takes to win as a team. And, the Cavs got to find a way to figure that out, because right now they're not there. They're not together. And I'm not saying it's this guy's fault or that guy's fault. It may not be anybody's fault other than that they just haven't come up with the formula that allows them to live up to their expectations, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a ton of sense. And honestly, Mark, we again, none of this is scripted. I was watching the game last night with my son, And Spida, Mitchell came back in the game. Somebody was shooting a free throw, and he looked over at the bench and he said, "You could like." I'm not the best lip reader, but he literally said, "Who am I guarding?" And he said it twice to the bench. And I looked at my son, and now we're nitpicking a little bit. And I promise we're going to move on after this comment. But to your point, he looked at the bench twice and said, "Who am I guarding?" And I looked at my son and I said, "You know what? That's the difference between him and MJ and Kobe, because I have a feeling MJ and Kobe would have been saying, 'I'm taking Brunson.' I don't know what the rest of you guys are doing, but I'm taking your best guy." He was looking at the bench, and I literally like paused the Amazon or whatever, what we were watching the stream. I looked at my son. I said, that's the issue. That's one of many, many issues. And I'm not knocking Donovan Mitchell. The fact that he had to look to the bench to ask who he's guarding, not once but twice, while somebody's shooting free throws. Come on, man. Like, and Mark, you played in the league. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but man, I have a feeling MJ never looked at Phil Jackson and said, who do I have? No, man, come on. Like, or Kobe didn't look at Phil Jackson or whoever else and say, who am I guarding? No, man. They knew who they were guarding, because that's the alpha. He's the guy that's slapping the floor. He's saying, I got him. I'm taking this guy, and he's not going to beat me. And if he beats me, then get me some help. But you know what I'm saying, man? And I think that is what I just witnessed yesterday. Yeah, Donovan got 31, and I'm not knocking Donovan Mitchell. That's so awesome. Like, thank you, Donovan Mitchell, for getting your 31 points. But the fact that you had to look at the bench and ask who you're guarding, I don't know if that's a system thing. Man, you play at the highest level, and we have a lot of time to unpack that. That's just one takeaway I saw yesterday, and I have a million, but that was one that I was just like, man, if your alpha, your guy, your star is asking the bench who they're guarding, I maybe that's just the new NBA. I just don't think that's. I think he should be. He should have known who he's guarding, and he should have been locking that guy up. If that's the guy you're giving the most money on the team to be your alpha and your leader. I'll leave it there. Let's move on. Because I think we can probably go down a really big rabbit hole here, and it's still emotional, right? Like, right. For me as a Cavs fan, for you as a Cavs player, it was awesome that I got to see that you and Josh were back home, and I love me some Josh. Everybody gets to hear him every single week when in the intro. It was so cool to see you and Josh back there in Cleveland. So awesome that you're with your bride in Cleveland and now New York, and you guys are doing your thing. So let's move on, because I think we could probably go down a really bad rabbit hole if we start talking about the Cavs. So if it's okay with you, let's move on. We did touch on OKC and the Spurs. Great series. And I can't wait for Game 7, because that is two teams and that's what you want. I think, and that's what's sad. One more thing. That's what's so sad about the Cavs Knicks is to get swept in these conferences. You want to go 7. You want both series to go 7. Like, you want the best of the best. And it just felt like maybe the Cavs got there, which is awesome. But you don't do participation trophies at this point, right?
Right.
And
right.
You want games. I want OKC and the Spurs in Game 7. I want to see, these are the best of the best. This is to get to the finals, right? And so, shout out both those teams. We'll probably unpack that on our next podcast, because we'll probably be wrapping that up and getting ready for the finals. But I do want to say this. I have to say this, hat in hand, over the weekend, my Tar Heels, baseball. Let's talk a little baseball. My Tar Heels, number 3, number 2 in the ACC, number 3 in the overall college poll. And your Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, number 2 in the overall poll, number 1 in the ACC. The only series they lost, I think, all year was to UNC. But you know what, Mark? I got to say that, hat in hand, they put it on my Tar Heels, and they won the ACC baseball tournament. So, man, congrats to your Georgia Tech. I got to say it. I got a hat in hand, be humble and man, shout out to Georgia Tech. That is a machine when it comes to college baseball if people watch. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was a great game. I got to watch a lot of it. We were texting back and forth. I mean, UNC has a great team as well. So that was two legit big time programs going at it for the ACC championship. And yeah, Georgia Tech gave them the Tech-a-lanche or whatever you want to call it there. A couple innings, those bats for Georgia Tech have been great all year. So they're officially, I guess it came out, the stuff, I don't know exactly where. I'm sure UNC will host a home regional as well. But I think Tech is a number two overall seed. I think UNC may be a 3 overall seed. But, yeah, they could meet again. They could meet again in Omaha, the place of the College World Series. So hopefully help them get there. I mean, yeah, there's no guarantee. I mean, those super regionals can be a lot of upsets going on. A little bit like the field of 64 in basketball. Those super regionals can have some upstart, mid-major baseball teams come through there and upset some people. So they got to take care of business. But yeah, how fun would it be to get down the road and be Tech UNC for all the marbles?
Hey, remember that thing?
You got to be more specific.
Remember November?
You mean Thanksgiving?
Right after that, on Saturday? Remember the thing?
Don't.
That football thing?
Stop.
That 13-10 football thing?
Okay, fine. Remember that college football playoff and national championship thing?
Okay, that felt very targeted.
It was.
The Rivalry Podcast is back, sponsored by Elevated Integrity Construction.
All the college football sports talk you can handle.
With none of the trash.
Except when we talk about your team up north.
Subscribe to the Rivalry Podcast in your podcast app.
Or go to riverradio.com.
Hey, let's do it. Let's plan on it. If they do, we could probably find a hotel somewhere in Omaha. But all I know is Carolina got the hardest bracket. And I'm not people are going to say you're a Carolina fan. No, seriously, Google it. Carolina got absolutely not a lot of – they got Tennessee in their bracket. Tennessee. Now, they are playing at home, but they got ECU, who always plays them tough. Anyway, we could break that down. But, yeah, Carolina didn't get a very favorable bracket, but they're, I think, 5. And I think you're correct. Georgia Tech is 2. And Georgia Tech absolutely deserves it. They are a machine. I'm pretty sure a ball just landed from Saturday that one of their guys hit versus Carolina. Like that was a bomb. It was anyway. They're very, very good. So should be a lot of fun. And so yeah, had to get off the Cavs and talk a little baseball. All right, let's go to the face segment because I want to talk about this. Everybody is a little upset today in Cleveland. It's and I have to once again fall on the sword here and say that I am like deleting more tweets than I'm tweeting, but I might have let a few skip through about my feelings about certain players and other players coming back and all these things. Man, we got to get our words. And so I wanted to ask you about that, Mark. What advice do you have for just guarding our thoughts, guarding our words when it comes to social media now, but also when you were playing and when you talk to people, when you're frustrated? I'm sure you're not real happy with a lot of situations with the Cavs. How do we guard our words, guard our heart, and respect Jesus in the same time?
Yeah, I think so much of it is, the discipline of holding your tongue, because 99% of the time, in the heat of the moment, we're not going to say the right thing, right? Yeah. It's just, we're upset or somebody says or we're mad and we lash out in some form or fashion. And then 9 times out of 10, we're like, oh, man, I really shouldn't have said that. Or, it's just, I think it's a natural tendency as humans to vent and to let things out. And I think the Bible, particularly, in the Proverbs, and God talks so much about wisdom, and there's so many verses talking about the tongue, and how it can heal, how it can, really break people down. And so you can either, talks about, can either be a blessing or a curse. And I think as a believers, we just always need to keep in mind when we open our mouths, how can what I'm saying be a blessing, rather than cursing somebody down, if that may not necessarily cursing, but you know what I'm saying, of dressing somebody down, and in a way kind of cursing them, as the scripture talks about. And I think that's something that the more times we can just be patient, or, hey, sometimes if somebody, comes up and asks you, what do you think about, sometimes it would just be best to say, you know what, I think I just need to spend some time thinking about this, uh, and really praying about things before we give an answer. We don't always have to give an answer in the moment, right? And we live in if you get a text, everybody expects you to text them back in 10 seconds kind of world. But sometimes it's to take a pause. Someone's asking you your opinion on something. It's not the end of the world to say, you know what? That's a great question. I think I'm going to take some time to really think about that, and pray about that before I speak. And I think our world would be such a better place if everybody did that, whether it be on social media or Twitter, or, you're tweeting at this person and somebody says something ugly to you. So you got to kind of say something ugly to them. And it's just, it's just a fire that spreads, and it's not blessing anybody, right? It's you're cutting them, they're cutting you. It's just that's not something that honors the Lord, in my opinion. And I can't remember who said it, but I've always taken it to mind that God created us with 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we talk. And I think that would keep a lot of us out of trouble. Just that simple mindset. That, hey, let's listen a little bit more and maybe just hold our tongue a little bit more. I think the world for sure would be a better place.
That's so good. Spoken like the true point guard that we all love, and why I just lean into so much of your wisdom. We do have a code word that when I get a text from you that says a certain code word, I know that's no. I'm just gonna leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. So when I text Mark and he replies back with a certain code word, I know that is his wisdom to say no. So, but I do want to say that when it comes to Twitter, Mark, you had a chance over the weekend. I know a lot of former players. There's some on ESPN. There's guys everywhere making a buck for a click, and hey, good, shout out to them, right? Mark, if people go back and look at your Twitter, what the last 2 tweets or 3 tweets, I think, would see you and Josh, you and Laura, and then you and Laura again. So you had a chance to go out and talk about the Cavs and trash the Cavs and trash Kenny or trash, James Harden. I might have done that, but I'm not a former Cavs player, but you know what I'm saying? Go back and look at Mark's. So listen to what my guy just said, because what he just said is what he lives, and you can say what you think, but you'll live what you believe. And so if you go look at Mark's Twitter, you'll see that he lives what he believes, and he doesn't tweet necessarily everything he might think. What he tweeted was his son and his beautiful bride twice. So you live what you believe, Mark, and I appreciate that. And one more thing that I would say is that I have I have a massive 216 tattoo on my arm. It comes from a spirit of the 216 where we don't back down. We don't, hey, Mark, you live there in Cleveland. We fight. Like we have a little chip on our shoulder. I have that on my forearm, and it's there forever. And when people will ask me, hey, about my tattoos or something like that, and they'll say, hey, is there any, my daughters, we just had this conversation over the weekend. Is there one that you would maybe redo or one that you would get rid of? the one that I say is the 216. Not because I got the 216 because that's where I'm from, and I love my hometown. I love where I'm from, and it represents who I'm from. But it's really large, and what it tells me is like that's not the attitude that I always necessarily want to have. I want to come at it from what my wife taught my daughters growing up and my son. She would always say, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it loving? And does it reflect Jesus? Just over Mother's Day weekend, we were talking to our kids and they said, hey, what's something you remember about mom and what did she teach you? And they said, I always remember on the refrigerator, it said, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it loving? Does it reflect Jesus? Those are 4 pillars that my wife, my bride, taught my kids growing up. And they still remember that. And I think it comes to our social media. It comes to our responses. And I'm not good at this. I am absolutely, as Paul said, I'm the chief sinner. When it comes to this, I am not the guy. But I think that is something that each one of us should take into account, whether it's Twitter, social media, in our office place. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it loving? And does it reflect Jesus? Just pause and run that through. And, my wife ingrained that, stitched that in my kids' heart, and they live that way. I wish I was more like them in that way because I'm not. I'm the first to fire off a tweet. And so, and you're on the podcast with me. So sorry. But man, no, I think, yeah. It's just something we all really gotta, especially in today's world where we can destroy somebody in one tweet, or as you said, Mark, we can get into a Twitter fight, but nobody wins a Twitter war. No one wins. No one wins because half the people are going to think somebody's winning and half the people are going to think somebody else is winning, but y'all look bad either way. And so nobody wins a Twitter war. That's my best advice is no one wins a Twitter war. Don't get in it. Just walk away.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I agree with you totally. No, I agree with you totally on that.
Well, and I'm thankful that you lead the way, Mark. Again, your son and your bride. That's your last 2 tweets, I believe. I don't know if I go look at your Twitter, maybe something else. But what I guarantee you I'm not going to find is Mark Price trashing somebody or being controversial. Mark is going to be smart, necessary, and loving. So, yeah, there you go.
Well, I appreciate it, man. But it's a challenge for all of us. We live in a, crazy, like I said, instantaneous response and sayings and Twitter. And we have this platform. And I think the biggest part of what you said and most, particularly that your wife shared with your kids over the years, is it necessary is such a great thought, because 99% of it is no on that. 99% of that is no. Is this necessary? No, it's really not. Right. And so the more we keep that in mind, the wiser we will be. And I encourage everyone out there to continue to chase after, those things that honor Christ and, do things that are loving as well to others in his name.
Well, man, enjoy your time with your lovely bride in New York City. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a game, but you all will have a great time finding other things to do there in New York City. Possibly, a Bee Gees thing. I might hit Google and see if there's a if there's a cover Bee Gees band there in New York City. But no, y'all have a great time. We will be back next week, and we'll have more time then. We had a chance to cool off and. We'll have plenty of time this summer. The good thing is there's a lot happening this summer, and I have a feeling the Cavs will be very active, and so we'll have a lot to talk about. But in the meantime, good luck to Georgia Tech. Very good baseball team. Very, very good baseball team. Beat my Tar Heels, and that'll be fodder for the next episode. So, Mark, have a great time. Thanks so much for jumping on with us while you're traveling. And anything else before we get out of here?
No, man. Just hope everybody has a great week and look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. For Mark, I'm Aaron. This has been episode 188 of the Mark Price for 3 podcast, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Mark Price for 3 podcast. Remember to subscribe, like, review, and share. I'm Josh Price, and we will talk to you again on the next episode.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com.